Someone wanted me broken. Someone wanted me to be silent. Someone wanted time to run out. But the real question was the one that kept clawing at me as I stared at the ceiling, trembling, barely able to breathe. What exactly was supposed to happen in 3 days? If you're alone while watching this, tighten your blanket and hit the like button so YouTube understands you want the next chapter unlocked. And tell me in the comments, what country are you watching from? And what's the exact time there right now? I still remember the first sound I heard when I woke up, the slow rhythmic beeping of a machine that didn't feel like it belonged in my life at all, and the cold sting of air that made me realize I wasn't at home anymore, but in a hospital bed I had no memory of entering. And even before I opened my eyes, there was one thing pulsing inside my head like a warning siren. Why did he say I had 3 days left? Why would the man I loved for years grip my hand so tight, look me dead in the eyes, and whisper something that terrifies me every time I replay it in my mind? Why would a husband count down my days like he was waiting for something to happen instead of praying I'd survive? That question alone ripped through my chest as I blinked awake, my vision blurry, my body heavy, and my mind spinning like it was trying to crawl back into darkness before the truth could hit me again. The nurses were holding my hands. I could feel their warm grip, firm yet gentle, like they were trying to anchor me to the world. But even their presence couldn't silence the echo of those 4 haunting words he said. Only 3 days left. 3 days until what? 3 days until who would take what from me? 3 days until something became his. My heart started racing again, that same panicked rhythm I felt the moment before everything went black. The moment I still can't remember clearly. The moment my mind keeps dancing around like it's afraid to look straight at it. I tried to swallow, but my throat felt raw, like I had screamed or begged or fought before I landed here. And I didn't even know what to do. All I knew was that the last clear image burned into my memory was his hand wrapped around mine, his thumb rubbing the back of my skin so softly it felt like a lie, and his voice low enough to sound like a secret he wasn't supposed to say out loud. Now everything is mine. Those words slithered around my brain like poison, twisting into every thought, forcing me to ask the question I was terrified to face. What exactly did he think he was about to take from me? My life, my money, my home, my identity, or something far worse that I couldn't even imagine yet? When I looked down at my arms, I saw faint bruises I didn't recognize, dark, uneven marks that told a story my brain was refusing to unlock. My ribs ached, my cheeks stung, and the weight of what might have happened hit me harder than the pain itself. How could I wake up covered in bruises and not remember how they got there? How could anyone forget something so violent, so real, so close to ending everything? The nurses looked at me with a kind of sympathy that made my stomach drop, like they already knew part of the truth I was still crawling toward. But the worst part wasn't the bruises or the fear or even the memory loss. It was the emptiness beside my bed. His absence. The man who claimed to love me wasn't there. Not holding my hand, not comforting me, not checking on me, not watching over me with worry like any normal partner would. Instead, the only version of him I could see was the one in my memory, the one whispering that in 3 days everything would be his, and that alone made my blood run cold. If he wasn't here to see me wake up, was it because he already thought he had one? Was it because he thought the countdown had already started and all he had to do was wait? Or was he hiding? Because he knew exactly how I ended up like this. I tried to force my mind backward, pushing through the fog, searching for clues, flashes, sounds, anything that could explain why my life suddenly felt like a ticking clock I couldn't see. And then, just as the room steadied and my breathing slowed, a strange, gut-pulling certainty hit me so hard my chest tightened. That hospital bed wasn't where my story ended. It was where the truth started unraveling. Because deep down, buried under fear and confusion, I knew one thing for sure. Whatever happened the night I ended up here wasn't an accident. Someone wanted me broken. Someone wanted me to be silent. Someone wanted time to run out. But the real question was the one that kept clawing at me as I stared at the ceiling, trembling, barely able to breathe. What exactly was supposed to happen in 3 days? Why was he counting down? And what was he waiting to claim once the clock hit 0? I kept lying there in that hospital bed wishing my mind would slow down. But the moment I let it drift, it dragged me backward into memories I had spent years sugarcoating just to survive. Everyone always talks about marriage like it's this safe little island where nothing bad can touch you. And for the longest time, I truly believed I had that. A steady, warm place where I could breathe. And that's what makes everything hurt even more now. Because before the coldness, before the lies, before the bruises, he used to wake up early just to warm my coffee mug so it stayed hot longer. He used to brush his thumb over my cheek when I was stressed, like he could calm the whole world with one small touch. He used to wrap his arms around me at night with this protective heaviness that made me think nothing could ever go wrong. But somewhere along the way, that warmth didn't just fade, it froze solid. I didn't notice it at first. It started the same way winter starts, quietly, slowly, almost politely, until the cold was so sharp I could feel it in my bones. His tone changed. His eyes changed. His presence changed. Gone were the lazy Sunday mornings, the soft smiles, the casual touches. Instead, I got the smell of a new cologne he never wore around me. I got keys turning in the door hours past midnight. I got the weight of silence sitting between us like a wall neither of us wanted to acknowledge. And yet, I kept lying to myself because admitting the truth meant admitting I was losing the man I had built my whole life around. I told myself he was tired, even when he stopped asking how my day was. I told myself he was stressed, even when he stopped looking at me altogether. I told myself marriages go through rough patches, even when every instinct in my body screamed that someone else had already taken my place. But the scariest part wasn't the possibility of cheating. It was the things he started doing around money. He insisted on managing the bills, so I wouldn't worry. He convinced me to sign papers I barely glanced at because I trusted him. He joked more than once about how life insurance is the only bet you're guaranteed to win. He discouraged me from working extra shifts, saying it was better if he handled the finances. Back then, those things sounded like care. Now they sound like preparation. There was a night, long before the hospital, when he looked at me across the room with this strange, almost calculating expression, like he wasn't seeing a partner but a problem he needed to solve. The air felt different that night. The house felt colder. Even the way he walked past me felt intentional, like every step was another inch of distance he wanted between us. Thinking about it now makes my chest twist because the truth is, the betrayal didn't start with the affair. It started with me betraying myself every time I ignored a red flag waving right in front of me. I wasn't blind. I was just terrified of the truth. Terrified of the cost of leaving. Terrified that I had wasted all these years loving a man who had stopped loving me long before I realized. But lying in that hospital room, bruised and shattered, I finally understood something I never wanted to admit. I hadn't just lost him emotionally. I had become an obstacle in the one place he cared about most. His freedom. His money. His future without me. And the moment that realization settled into my bones, a cold shiver ran through me because suddenly the bruises didn't feel random. The memory loss didn't feel accidental. The countdown didn't feel metaphorical. There was a plan, a timeline, a motive, and everything pointed to the moment I pretended not to see for months. The night I discovered that one message that shattered every illusion I'd built to keep myself safe. Because that message didn't just prove he was cheating. It revealed exactly why my disappearance would benefit him more than my existence. I wish I could tell you that the truth hit me fast. That I slammed the pieces together and instantly knew who stabbed me in the back. But no, my mind fought it. My heart wrestled with it. And for a moment, just one painful moment, I actually defended her. No, not her. Anyone but her. Because she wasn't just some neighbor or casual family friend. She was the woman who showed up with soup when I was sick, the one who helped fold baby clothes, the one who held my hand during my mother's funeral and whispered, "I'm here always." Always. God, that word burned now. But as I sat there with my heart hammering and my hands trembling, the memory came back. The one I had shoved so deep inside that I nearly forgot it happened. It was 2 years ago. We were all in the kitchen after a small dinner gathering. She grabbed my husband's wrist to reach for a bowl. Nothing strange, nothing dramatic. But the way she held it, the way her fingers lingered longer than they should. I remember freezing for just a second. A weird flash in her eyes, like she forgot I was in the room. But the moment I blinked, she smiled at me again. Sweet, warm, familiar. And I told myself I was overthinking. I told myself she loved me like a sister. I told myself to stop making drama where there wasn't any. That was the first time I betrayed myself. That realization stung almost as much as theirs. My breath grew shallow. I placed the phone on the bed like it was burning my skin. The room suddenly felt colder, like all the warmth had been pulled straight out of my lungs. Even the silence sounded different, heavier. Tense, like the house was holding its breath with me. The messages weren't just flirty. They weren't just playful. They were strategic, calculated, coordinated, hidden. They talked about timing. They talked about after those 3 days. They talked about me, like I was a problem, an obstacle, something to manage. My chest tightened. I pressed my palm against it like I could keep my heart from falling apart. For a split second, I swear, I hoped it was some twisted prank. I hoped she had stolen his phone. I hoped someone hacked their messages. Anything. Anything except the truth sitting right there on my screen. But then, my eyes caught another memory I didn't want to remember. Last spring, she bought him a birthday gift, a tie. I remember joking, "You chose a style I'd never pick." She laughed. He laughed. But now I realized why he liked it so much. Because she chose it. That tiny detail, that tiny thread, pulled the whole fabric apart. My throat tightened. My inner voice started whispering, slow, brutal, honest. "You've been seeing the signs. You just didn't want them to be real." Tears didn't come yet. Not anger. Not shouting. Just numbness, cold, echoing numbness, like someone unplugged my entire soul. I picked up the phone again, forcing myself to scroll just one more message, even though every nerve begged me not to. Once she's gone from the house, we move forward. 3 days. Just 3. My blood chilled. She wasn't stealing my husband. She wasn't stealing my heart. She was stealing my life. My place. My home. My everything. And the worst part, somewhere deep inside, I knew. I had known for a long time. I just didn't want the truth to ruin the story I thought I was living. But the story was already ruined. I just hadn't turned the page yet. I closed my eyes, swallowed the shaking in my throat, and whispered to myself, "If they want 3 days, let's see what they planned for day 1. Because the next thing I saw on that phone didn't just reveal their plan. It told me exactly what they needed me gone for. I used to think danger announced itself loudly, like a door slamming, a glass breaking, a scream tearing through the quiet. But real danger doesn't move like that. It walks softly, quiet, calculating. And sometimes day 1 begins while you still think life is normal. What terrified me now was realizing day 1 had already started hours before I found those messages. I had been living inside their plan without even knowing I was the target. As I stared at the phone, the timestamp on their text stung like a slap. Not next week. Not someday. Today. While I made breakfast. While I folded laundry. While I hummed to myself thinking my marriage was just ordinary. They weren't preparing for something. They were executing something. A slow coldness spread through my arms, Not sharp panic this time, but a deep sinking chill. Like my body finally understood something my mind was terrified to admit. Because day one wasn't emotional. It had a purpose, a schedule, a goal I wasn't supposed to survive. Emotionally or maybe even physically. I scrolled again and saw it. Make sure she leaves around noon. I'll handle the rest. My heart jolted. Because today at noon, something strange had happened. Something I brushed off like it was nothing. My husband had told me, almost insisted, "Don't you have that appointment today?" I didn't. But he pushed it like he needed me gone. Like noon was the deadline. And then she texted me moments later. "Hey, lunch." Back then I thought it was sweet. Thought she was being thoughtful because she noticed I'd been stressed. I even smiled at my phone thinking, wow, she's so caring. Now that memory made bile rise in my throat. Because nothing was thoughtful. Nothing was innocent. Everything was timed. Scripted. Coordinated. My stomach tightened, but not with the same fear as Module 3. This was something heavier. A mix of heartbreak and humiliation. Because I had trusted both of them so blindly. I had defended them. I had ignored the tiny moments when my gut whispered that something was off. And then another memory hit me, the door. Last night he checked the front lock 3 times. But now the detail twisted differently inside my mind. He wasn't checking it to protect me. He was checking it to make sure it would only open for someone else later. Someone he was preparing day 2 for. A faint buzzing sound echoed in the back of my memory. The noise I heard earlier near the living room window. I had thought it was maybe a loose wire or the fridge humming. But now a terrible thought crept in. What if they planted something? What if someone had already been inside today? What if day 1 wasn't about getting me out, but about letting something in? My breath trembled. My vision pulsed with tiny white dots. But beneath the fear, a sharper emotion rose. Betrayal so deep it scraped bone. Because I hadn't just lost a husband. I'd lost my own judgment. My own self-respect. I had let them into the softest places of my life and they used every bit of it against me. I swallowed hard, scrolling again, looking for something. Anything that told me what day 1 was meant to achieve. And I found it. Not written directly. Not obvious. But hidden between their lines. They kept mentioning timing, access, and preparation. Words that didn't match an affair. Words that matched intention. Something was supposed to happen today. Something involving the house. Something involving me not being in it. That a cold shiver slid down my spine. So sharp it almost felt like a fingernail tracing the back of my neck. And that's when I whispered into the empty room. If this is day 1, what the hell is day 2? Because the next file I opened on his phone wasn't a message. It was a document they prepared for day 2. And the title alone nearly stopped my heartbeat. The file opened slower than anything I've ever seen on a phone screen. Like it knew I wasn't ready for what was inside. Like it wanted to give me one last second of innocence before it shattered everything. When the title finally appeared, my throat closed so tight I couldn't swallow. Because the document wasn't romantic. It wasn't sweet. It wasn't something 2 people in love would ever create. It was titled, Contingency Plan Day 2. Not a note. Not a draft. Not an accident. A plan. Written. Structured. Prepared. My blood turned into something thick and heavy. Like it was dragging through my veins instead of flowing. This wasn't cheating anymore. This was strategy. A blueprint. A roadmap for replacing me like I was a line item being crossed off. I scrolled slowly, almost scared of touching the screen. And the first section made my heartbeat stutter painfully. Ensure removal of access. Removal. Of me. My access. My life. My home. My everything. Suddenly every tiny odd moment from the last few months punched its way back into my head. The missing mailbox key. The online accounts that suddenly locked me out. The bank website is asking for new verification. I blamed my memory. I blamed updates. I blamed everything except the truth that he was preparing for a life where I had no access to anything. My palms grew slick with sweat. I wiped them on my clothes, but the fear clung to me like humidity in the air. Heavy, suffocating, inescapable. The next line was even worse. It was short, too short for how much damage it held. Switch emergency contacts. My stomach twisted in one sharp curl, like someone had grabbed my insides and yanked hard. Emergency contacts were what hospitals used, what banks used, what the police looked at, what insurance depended on. He wasn't just preparing to remove me from the house. He was preparing to remove me from his life. Legally, financially, officially. Like I never existed. I felt something inside me break, but not loudly. Just a small, painful crack. The kind that hurts more because it's quiet. I forced myself to keep scrolling, even though every part of me wanted to throw the phone across the room. But I had to know. I had to see how deep this betrayal went. The next section froze my breath completely. Update beneficiary files. My entire body went cold. That wasn't emotional betrayal. That wasn't romantic betrayal. That was financial betrayal with cruelty sharpened into a weapon. Beneficiary. As in insurance, assets, accounts, inheritance. All the things couples only update when they trust each other with their lives. And he had removed me. He had taken my name off without a word, without a hint, without hesitation. That a wave of humiliation crashed through me so hard my knees almost gave out. Because while I was cooking for him, loving him, believing in him, he was preparing paperwork to erase me. But then something even darker hit me. Something that made the room tilt slightly. If I wasn't the beneficiary anymore, then what exactly were those 3 days building toward? Why did she say everything would be hers? Why did he whisper only 3 days left with that empty smile? A cold prickle crawled down the back of my neck. Because people don't rush to change beneficiaries unless they're preparing for something major, something irreversible, something that happens fast and leaves no room for questions. My heart thudded violently, like it was trying to warn me, trying to scream through my chest that I was in far more danger than just heartbreak and betrayal. And then I noticed something. A small icon at the bottom of the document. A linked file. Another attachment. .it was labeled Day 2 Checklist. My breath stopped halfway in my throat. Because checklists aren't for accidents. They're for actions. Planned actions. Coordinated actions. I tapped it with shaking fingers, terrified but desperate, needing to know exactly what they were planning to do on day 2. My whole body felt suspended between dread and anger, between disbelief and survival instinct. Because opening this file wasn't just reading betrayal anymore. It was reading a threat. A direct one. Because the very first item on the Day 2 checklist wasn't about money or property or paperwork. It was about me, and the way they planned to make sure I never walked back into that house again. And my finger hovered over the checklist like it could burn me just by touching it. My brain kept whispering not to open it. Not to see more than I could handle. But another part of me, the part still clinging to survival, knew I had to look. I had to know what they planned for day 2. Because whatever had happened on day 1 was just the warm-up. The checklist opened instantly. No loading. No hesitation. Almost like it was eager to reveal itself. Eager to show me exactly how replaceable I had become. The first line hit me so hard my legs wobbled beneath me. Secure her exit. Not encourage. Not help. Secure. Like forcing someone out. Like removing a problem. Like shutting a door on something they didn't want to come back. My heart slammed against my ribs with a force that felt painful. Because this wasn't cheating anymore. This wasn't betrayal anymore. This was a coordinated removal plan. And I was the thing being removed. I felt a wave of dizziness sweep through me. Like the ground had tilted a few degrees to the left. My body knew before my mind did that this meant danger far beyond heartbreak. This meant I wasn't safe in my own home. This meant they didn't want me returning after day one. I forced myself to keep reading, even though every line felt like another knife sliding under my skin. The second item was worse than the first. Collect remaining personal items discreetly. My breath caught sharp and painful in my chest, because I suddenly remembered something from earlier that morning. My favorite bracelet wasn't where I left it. My sweater on the couch had been folded, but not in my folding style. A drawer I never opened had been moved slightly forward. It wasn't paranoia. Someone had been in my things. Someone had touched them. Someone had started removing pieces of me before I even knew I was disappearing. My hands shook so badly I had to grip the edge of the table to steady myself, because it meant one terrifying truth. While they were sweet-talking me, distracting me, pushing me out for lunch, someone was inside this house. On day one, going through my life like it was trash they were sorting. A tremor ran down my spine so fast it felt icy. As I wasn't just betrayed, I was being erased. The next line made my whole body turn cold. The kind of cold that sinks into your bones and doesn't leave. Confirm her financial separation. Financial separation. Suddenly. No discussion. No warning. It hit me then, the missing bank notifications. The sudden request for new passwords. The credit card declined, so I brushed it off. The insurance letter I never received. They weren't accidents. They weren't glitches. They were deliberate steps. Day one steps. Executed right under my nose. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. My throat felt locked shut by fear and disbelief and humiliation so thick it almost suffocated me. I scrolled to the next item, hoping stupidly that maybe it would be something mild, something less horrifying, something that didn't involve destroying my entire life. But the next line broke me more than all of them combined. Prepare her replacement profile. My vision blurred instantly. Not from tears, from pure shock. From the realization that they weren't just taking my marriage. They were taking my identity. They were giving her my place legally, socially, financially. Piece by piece. My lungs felt tight, like all the air in the room had evaporated. 'Cause this wasn't just betrayal. This was an overthrow. A coup inside my own home. And then the final item on the checklist. The one that made everything inside me go still, eerily still. Like my body had frozen just to survive the moment. Ensure no re-entry. My heart dropped so violently it hurt. No re-entry. Not just emotionally. Not just financially. Not just socially, they meant physically. They meant the house. The property. Life. They didn't want me coming back. At all that I stood there, clutching the phone like it was the only thing keeping me conscious. My mind spun with one brutal realization. Day two wasn't about betrayal. It was about removal. It was about making my absence permanent. And they had only one more step left to get rid of me completely. Because right after that final line, there was one more file attached. A short video clip labeled Final Confirmation Day 3. And I knew whatever was inside it would reveal exactly why he said only 3 days were left. The storm rolled in like it had a personal grudge against our house. Wind slammed the windows. Thunder cracked so loud it rattled the light fixtures. But it wasn't the storm that woke me. It was the footsteps. Right above my room. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. Like someone pacing in the attic. But nobody ever went up there. I pulled my blanket closer, my heart thumping like it wanted out of my chest. Then came the second sound. A soft, dragging scrape. Like something being pulled across the wooden floorboards. A trunk. A box. A body. I didn't know. I didn't want to know. I forced myself to breathe quietly. The storm flashed white through the window. And that's when I saw her, Grandma, standing in the hallway just outside my door. Completely still. Her silhouette is sharp and dark against the lightning. She wasn't moving. She wasn't blinking. She was just watching. Grandma. My voice cracked like a broken hinge. She didn't answer. Instead, she lifted one hand slowly and pressed a single finger to her lips. "Eh." Then she pointed upward toward the attic, as if warning me not to make a sound. Another thud came from above us, this one louder, closer, like something had crashed or collapsed. Grandma's eyes widened, and I swear, for the first time in my life, I saw fear on her face. She turned and hurried down the hallway, her steps fast, urgent. But she wasn't heading to the attic. She was heading to the basement, the one place she'd always forbidden me to enter. The storm kept shaking the house. The footsteps upstairs kept moving. And Grandma was disappearing into the dark below. For the first time, I realized something terrifying. My grandma wasn't protecting me from the house. She was protecting the house from me. And whatever was in that attic, it wasn't waiting anymore. It was coming. Fast. The second Grandma vanished down those basement steps, the whole house seemed to hold its breath. The storm roared outside. But inside, everything went dead quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that feels intentional. Like something is listening. Then another dragging sound above me. Long, slow scraping. Like someone was pulling their whole weight across the attic floor. I couldn't stay frozen. Every instinct in my body screamed move. So I slipped out of bed, feet hitting the cold floor. And instantly something felt wrong. The air had changed. It smelled damp, old, like mold and metal had been breathing for years down there. I followed the faint glow of Grandma's lantern, the one she kept for power outages. Her shadow flickered along the walls, moving fast, way too fast for someone her age. "Grandma," I whispered harshly, but she didn't turn around, didn't slow down, didn't even flinch. She just kept descending deeper and deeper into that basement, like she knew exactly where she needed to be. The storm cracked overhead, and for a split second the whole stairwell flashed white. That's when I saw it. A second shadow. Not hers. Larger. Broader. Moving just a beat behind her. I froze. My breath locked in my throat. Someone else was already down there. The storm died down again, and the only sound left was the creaking of old wood. And Grandma whispering to someone I couldn't see it. I leaned forward, trying to hear. And that's when my foot hit something. A thick, coarse rope stretched across the floor. Like a trap someone forgot to hide. My stomach dropped. Grandma didn't go downstairs to protect us. She went to reset something. Something she didn't want me to know existed. I crouched and picked up the rope. Cold, wet, stiff like it had been used recently. And then, from the bottom of the stairs, I heard her voice. Not gentle, not warm, not the way she ever spoke to me, but low, commanding, sharp enough to cut through the dark. "Don't come down here." A pause. A long, deep, terrifying pause. Then, "Not tonight." Lightning flashed again, and the attic above me exploded with noise like something huge fell or broke free. 2 dangers. One above, one below, and I was standing trapped between both. Whatever day 2 was, it was unfolding right now. I woke up on day 3 with a feeling that didn't feel like fear anymore. It felt calculated, like the house itself had been waiting for me to open my eyes. There was no gentle moment between sleep and reality this time. Everything snapped into focus all at once. The air tasted metallic, like I'd been breathing in something old and unsettled during the night, and my chest felt tighter than it did yesterday. Not panic. Something quieter, heavier, the kind of tension that builds right before a storm you can smell but can't see. I let my feet touch the floor, and the cold shot up my legs fast enough to make me flinch. Not the kind of cold your skin adjusts to. The kind that feels intentional. A cold that holds you rather than touches you. But instead of spiraling into fear like before, I caught myself taking a breath, grounding myself, letting the dread simmer instead of explode. I needed clarity, not another panic spike. The hallway outside my bedroom looked unchanged, but the air had a weight it didn't have the day before. And then it hit me, that smell. Damp mold metal. The same scent from the basement, drifting through the second floor like it had risen overnight. It wasn't just unsettling anymore. It was logical in the worst way. Smells travel when something spreads, or when something moves, or when something wakes up. And then I saw it, the rope, placed neatly at the end of the hallway, coiled like a resting snake. It wasn't threatening by itself, but my body reacted before my mind did, like it recognized something my consciousness hadn't caught up to yet. A weird, sick heaviness tightened under my ribs, the same sensation I'd felt as a kid when I overheard adults whispering things I wasn't supposed to hear, things that made the world feel darker, even if I didn't understand them. That rope carried that same energy now. Like it wasn't just an object, it was a reminder of control, restraint, or the way someone makes sure you have no options. A part of me instantly thought of Grandma, and not in a comforting way. Her face last night, fear mixed with some kind of knowing, came back in a flash. She wasn't surprised by any of this. That realization formed slowly, quietly, without panic. She was scared I finally noticed what she'd been trying to keep buried. I moved toward her bedroom, rehearsing what I'd say, telling myself I'd push for real answers this time. No more soft pivots or half warnings from her. But halfway there, the atmosphere shifted, the air pressing against the back of my neck like a heavy breath. I froze, my heartbeat slowing instead of racing, my instincts opening wide like they were listening for something I couldn't see. I stepped back from her door just as a sound drifted up from downstairs. Not footsteps, not breathing. A slow dragging noise, fabric or rope sliding across wood, steady and deliberate. My stomach tightened, not violently, just sharply, like my body knew something long before my mind dared to acknowledge it. The rope in the hallway wasn't just a message anymore. It was placement. Timing. A breadcrumb left too perfectly for coincidence. And that's when suspicion cut through me. Not supernatural, not emotional, human. Whoever planned this knew the timing. They knew how to use silence, fear, and confusion as tools. I hadn't even processed that thought when my phone buzzed on the hallway table. Just once, one sharp vibration that felt more like a tap on my shoulder than a notification. I walked toward it slowly, not out of fear but out of calculation, trying to understand why the moment felt staged, too precise, too aligned with the sound downstairs. It was a text from an unknown number. For words only. He planned this early. My breath caught, not from horror, but from the wrongness of the timing. How did someone know the exact moment I was standing there? The exact moment the dragging sound started? The exact moment the rope appeared upstairs? That wasn't a coincidence. That was surveillance. Or involvement. Or both. And as that realization began to settle, something else flashed across my lock screen. Something that shifted the entire meaning of day 3. Something that proved none of this started when I discovered the affair. Because what appeared next wasn't a warning. It was proof that my husband, the woman he cheated with, and someone inside this house had been planning day 3 long before I ever learned the first truth. I stared at the second notification on my lock screen, and for a moment everything inside me went painfully still. It wasn't a message this time. It was a photo, one that shouldn't exist, one that made the air around me pull tight like a wire around my throat. It was a picture of me sleeping last night. Same room. Same blanket placement. Same angle I woke up in just an hour ago. Someone had taken it while I was unconscious and sent it to me now. And the timestamp on the corner didn't just make my blood run cold. It froze something deeper, something primal, something that whispered, "You weren't alone last night." I stood there without moving, without blinking, letting the horror sink in slowly instead of exploding all at once. I needed clarity, not chaos. I forced myself to breathe carefully, to separate the dread from the facts, and the first fact stabbed me hardest. Whoever took the photo was in the room, close enough to see the outline of my face in the dark, close enough to capture the angle perfectly, close enough that if I'd woken up, I could have touched them. That was the moment the rope behind me, the one coiled neatly in the hallway, shifted from symbol to threat. Not just restraint, not just manipulation. It was proof someone had plans for my body, my movement, my survival. A plan that lined up with 3 days left far too perfectly. My breath turned shallow as something clicked inside me, something deeper than fear. A kind of terrible clarity. My husband's betrayal wasn't just emotional or financial or intimate. It was strategic, methodical, connected to the house, the timeline, the secrecy, the staged noises, the moving objects, even Grandma's fear. I looked toward her door again, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger at her secrecy. I felt certainty. She wasn't hiding things from me because she was guilty. She was hiding things because she was terrified that once I knew the truth, I would be within the target range of the plan they'd set up. Grandma's fear wasn't the fear of a woman who'd done something wrong. It was the fear of someone who had seen this happen before. And that thought, that realization, blended with the dragging sound downstairs in a way that made my knees wobble. Because the noise hadn't stopped. It hadn't changed direction or speed or rhythm. It kept going like something or someone was pacing a boundary. Not to approach me, but to keep me contained. I clutched my phone like it was a lifeline and scrolled up through the unknown numbers' messages. But there was only the one text. One text and the photo. Whoever sent it wanted only 2 things: to warn me and to terrify me. But which one was the real intention? I stepped backward, my whole body tensing, and the floor shifted beneath me, not physically but emotionally. That same heavy sensation I felt on day 1, like the house had a pulse that synced with my fear. It was subtle at first, like a hum under the wooden boards. A vibration you'd mistake for imagination if you weren't already broken open by betrayal. Day 3 wasn't about danger approaching anymore. It was about danger already being here. I glanced at the rope, and something in my brain connected 2 images instantly. The rope in the hallway. The rope I saw in the basement. The dragging noise downstairs. The photo of me asleep. He planned this early message. None of it was random. It was a timeline, a ritual, a sequence. And I wasn't supposed to make it past day 3. I stepped back toward Grandma's door, needing answers, needing anything, needing someone who wasn't lying to me. And when my fingers touched the doorknob, it felt warmer than the icy air around me. Like someone had just held it. Like someone had gone into her room moments before I approached. My voice caught in my throat as a new realization sliced through me. What if Grandma wasn't in danger? What if Grandma was gone? What if I'd been alone in this house long before I realized it? My stomach twisted painfully as I pushed the door open an inch, and the smell hit me instantly. Not mold, not metal, not damp, but perfume. Her perfume. Except it was fading, not fresh, like someone had sprayed it to cover something up. I pushed the door wider, bracing myself because I didn't find Grandma in that room. But I did find the one thing that finally revealed what 3 days left was counting down to. And it wasn't my fear, my marriage, or my sanity. It was me. Hold up. Before we open this door together, hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss the truth that's about to come out. Trust me. What's behind this door will change everything. The sound hit me first. A slow dragging scrape, like someone pulling something heavy across a wooden floor. It came from upstairs, from the old attic we never opened. My breath snagged in my throat. Grandma's voice suddenly echoed in my head. Never go up there. Not even by mistake. But the scrape came again. Longer this time. Heavier. Almost like someone was waking up after years of being still. A cold shiver shot down my spine and I looked at the staircase. And the staircase looked back at me, dark, hollow, waiting. Every instinct screamed, run. But something else pulled me forward. That same strange tug in my chest. The same one that started the day I found the letters that I stepped onto the first stair. It creaked like it was warning me. The second stair groaned. By the third step, the scraping sound stopped. Silence. Thick. Dead. Complete. I froze. My fingers trembled as I reached for the attic door handle. But right before I touched it, something tapped back from inside. 1 tap. Pause. 2 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Slow. Deliberate. Like a coded message. And then a whisper seeped through the cracks. You finally came. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I thought they'd crack. Because the voice that whispered was not Grandma's. And it wasn't human. The handle turned from the other side. And the door started opening.